Good morning, Saitlanders. Are we recording? Yes, we're recording. How are you? We hope that you're well. Uh, just looking at the title of this video that I want to bring to you now, I can't help but laugh. This is something which many of you will have seen already. This is really a video for those of you who haven't. It's the story that did the rounds about 3 weeks ago, I think, perhaps as long ago as 4 weeks, about maths suffering from white supremacy. Let's bring it up on the screen here. Are we there? Oh, not yet. Boom, there we should be there. Okay, so I'll run you through it quickly. It's too funny for words, but there's a certain poignancy to it. There's a certain uncomfortable truth in it that I'm sure is lost on proponents of this, but which is really ineluctable, unavoidable, inescapable. So as you're reading on your screens, maths suffers from white supremacy, according to a Bill Gates funded course. An effort to portray traditional styles of teaching math as being non-inclusive is gaining steam, in part courtesy of the billionaire co-founder of Microsoft, as is the mockery of the effort. Here's the gist of the story, right? There's an organization called Equitable Math, and they are supported by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation via the Education Trust Incorporated. And as I understand it, perhaps from this article, I've forgotten, or another article, the Gates Foundation is either their largest funder, or in fact, which I think is correct, the latter, their only funder. And they say white supremacy culture shows up in maths classrooms when the focus is on getting the right answer. When the focus is on getting the right answer. The concept of mathematics being purely objective is unequivocally false, and teaching it is even much less so. So let's express this in applied mathematics terms. There are two streams, if you like, of mathematics. The one is pure mathematics, which is kind of mathematics for its own sake. It's about figuring out what is maths all about, what is it composed of, what is it comprised of, what are its elements. And then there is mathematics, which is all about serving another purpose. So it's not for its own sake. And that is the maths of physics, the maths of biology and chemistry, the mathematics of engineering, whether it be chemical engineering or civil engineering or mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, electronic engineering, etc., etc., etc. The list is almost endless. Maths is known as the queen of the sciences because she rules over every other science. Let's say that you're an engineer and you have to build a bridge. And you have to work out the stress, the tension, the this, the that, the next thing. What they're saying is it's unequivocally false that there's one right answer. And that is a symptom and a symbol of racism. That non-white children, non-Caucasians, are prejudiced by the bias to precision and accuracy and there only being one right answer in mathematics. And that non-white children, non-Caucasian learners, have suffered and been oppressed through this approach to mathematics since forever. Now, I think that there are many ancient Chaldeans, ancient Medes or Medians, ancient Persians, ancient Babylonians, ancient Egyptians, who by no means qualify as white, ancient Chinese, who would disagree very strongly with that statement. Because for thousands of years, prior to the domination of Christianity, European-derived Christianity, for 50 years here, 250 years there, 150 years again there, other races had turns and opportunities to develop science, and they contributed to mathematics. But apparently that's all wrong. Mathematics, mathematical accuracy, mathematical precision is a racist white thing. Because we insist upon there being one correct answer. 1 + 1 = 2. No, they say. What about the black child in pain who arrives at the answer 11? What about the black child in pain who labors under the conception that each of the stripes, each of the lines counts for 1, and there's the 1 + 1, so that's 1 line, and then the plus has got 2 lines, that's 3, and plus 1, it must equal 4. Surely this is reasonable. What about the poor non-white child striving for a better future, striving for an equal world, who takes the 1 and the plus and the second 1 and believes that the equal should be thrown in too? That's 6. Clearly the answer is 6. We can build a bridge like that. We can build a cathedral like that. We can build a road like that. You know we can. It's not only right to say 2. It's also right to say 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 9 and 12 and 13. It's all right. I mean, after all, if any non-racist right, what you and I would call wrong answer, can be right, well then surely they can all be right. Surely, if you extrapolate the logic, that is to say, if you take it to its logical conclusion, if you extrapolate the logic, then you have to admit that if 1 + 1 could be 11, it could also be 4, it could also be 6, it could also be 3, it could also be 333,333. Where do you draw the line? At what point do you cross the line between racism and non-racism? But I put it to you, ladies and gentlemen, that this is, in a way, not a bad thing. What I'm about to say may be construed as harsh by some, but I'm going to say it because, again, it is an extrapolation of the logic. It is an expression of a point in this extrapolation that makes some people uncomfortable, but it's there and it's valid. I'll give you a comparable example before I make my point. Some of you will have seen about a year ago, a video that did the rounds of an interview on what channel I can't remember, but it featured a white guy in his early 60s, I suppose, who I think was a professor, what do you call this, not archaeology, where you dig up the bones, paleontology, and a black professor called, I think it's Matole Mocheka. in which Matole Motshekga makes the point that blacks should reject notions of evolution, because the clear implication is that blacks are the lowest expression of evolution amongst human beings. Now, it doesn't matter whether you and I believe in evolution or not. I'm one of those people who sits on the fence. I'm one of those people who takes enormous encouragement from the series. If you've never seen it, you should watch it on YouTube. It's very good, called Is Genesis History? In other words, is it to be taken literally or is it allegorical? I think that's marvelous, where they demonstrate that the earth doesn't have to be 14, or the universe doesn't have to be 14.2 billion years old, and the earth 4.5 billion years old, where they demonstrate that these things, it's all nonsense, and they demonstrate how that carbon-14 dating is wrong. It is factually wrong, as a matter of fact. This is not opinion. This is not Christians saying that it's wrong. It is incorrect. It is an imprecise science. You can go and watch that series and you can see it for yourself. It's indisputable. You should never, ever, ever believe in carbon-12, carbon-14 dating ever again in your life. However, I'm also one of those people who acknowledges that my God can do things in ways that we can barely comprehend. For instance, I said to my mom once, if these people in the Old Testament did live literally to 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 900 years of age, how were they physically? If you take the average appearance of the average 100-year-old now, would they be 9 times more shriveled up and shrunken and weak and frail and unable and impotent? And no. I mean, they would be nothing. It would be a joke. They would be less than a dead leaf. And we know that the aging process speeds up over time. Older people will tell you that beyond a certain age, many put the figure of 50 or 55 or 60 on it, you age not at the same rate as you aged between the ages of 40 and 50, but that you age more quickly. I don't want to get into it because I'm not there yet. I just turned 50. I'm waiting to see. So it's absurd to suggest that somebody could have aged at the rate that we do now, with its acceleration that I've just described, all the way to 900. What would they be like? Like, I don't know, like a piece of fluff or something. So my God, presumably, if it's true that people did live to those ages, as I said to my mom, slowed their aging. That the aging process was slower. And then at the age of 900, they were like the people of 120 or 110 or 100 years old today. You can't escape this reasoning. Okay, so, I don't mind. I'm not fussed about this stuff. And it doesn't matter what you believe either. What matters is that whether you look at this thing from the left or from the right, that black professor is correct in saying that the ineluctable, inescapable conclusion is that blacks are more primitive. I'm not advocating that at all. But he's making the point. Don't buy into these fancy schmancy Western professors talking about evolution, because you as a black person will find yourself painted into the corner of subhuman, of subspecies. And he's correct. He's correct. If you buy into that theory, then you are left with the inescapable conclusion that you are more primitive. And this is one of these dreadful, inconvenient truths. And that's what we're talking now with this mathematics. these guys are in this impossible situation where if they buy into let's say, the supremacy, because that's what they're implying, the supremacist nature of European-derived, European-dominated, Caucasian-dominated, Caucasian-derived science, they struggle to cope. If they don't buy into it, this was the point from which I digressed some minutes ago. If you reject it, okay, fine, reject it. But you're never going to build a bridge that stands. You're never going to amount to anything. You're never going to be able to compete. By your standards, by the standards that you have implied in this argument. I didn't. Not one human being. Not the most left-wing hater that Saitlanders has in the United States of America. Some obese woman with green hair, and you've got to see them to believe them. These BLM people and Antifa people who protested at some of the speeches that we gave, or at some of the events where we gave speeches. They're ghastly people. They, oh dear me, they're in a very difficult position. They have to hate us. They must hate us in order to advance their agenda. But it's going to leave them in a position of inability to compete. Now, I suspect that what their long-term goal is to drag us down with them. In other words, to eradicate all European achievements, all European success, all European modes of thought upon which our success and achievement is built, and the pure sciences that largely underlie our modes of thought. European modes of thought are dominated or are informed by two things. One is mystical, the other is rational. The one is science, whether it be architecture, trigonometry, calculus, algebra, topology, mathematics, physics, you name it. The other is the mysticism of the Holy Word of God. And we are, that is to say, Caucasian Christians. This is something of which you may not be aware. We are the only, or our mode, the European Christian-derived mode of civilization, of thinking, is the only, it's unique in the world, absolutely unique in the world. There is nothing to emulate it that combines science and mysticism. Sometimes uncomfortably, sometimes not quite so successfully. There are times when science and mysticism, the mysticism that we get from our holy word, and science sit uncomfortably, when they become strange bedfellows, as the English expression goes. But by and large, we have been able to forge a civilization over the past 1,000 years, and arguably previous to that too, but certainly the past 1,000 years, the longest lasting civilization by very, very, very far in all of the history of mankind, excluding the Greek and Roman civilizations, which were obviously also, albeit not Christian, certainly Caucasian. And there's nothing to compare to it. And so although there's sometimes the scientific and rational aspects of our civilization don't gel all that easily, as we see in the nature-nurture debates, and as we see in the debates about evolution. Nevertheless, it has been by very far, both in a factor of its intensity, the intensity of its success, and in a factor of its duration, by very far, incomparable in all of the history of all of the world put together. If you take the rest of the history of all of the world and you compare it with just what has been achieved by European Christian civilization in the past 1,000 years, there is no competition. Even taking into account the fallacy of accumulated wisdom, meaning that it's easy to say, well, they never invented a rocket ship, we invented a rocket ship, therefore we're better. That's an absolute fallacy, because that's not derived from wisdom. That's derived from knowledge, cumulative knowledge. Knowledge stacked upon knowledge, stacked upon knowledge, stacked upon knowledge, stacked upon knowledge. So it's completely false. You have to measure it completely differently to that. And still, our race, our people, our culture, our traditions, our modes, our norms, the way we do things, the things that we do, our mores, that is to say our understanding of right versus wrong, and our values, the things that we cherish, the things that are most important to us, and so on. Our Christianity, our faith, our morality is exponentially the most successful in the history of the world. Unfortunately, we're living in a time where it looks as if it's also going to be the most successfully self-destructive mode of civilization or mode of society in the history of the world. Anyway, I think we've spoken at length now about these concepts. I think we've covered them well. We began with the story about this organization called Equitable Math, math, said the American way, which says that maths or mathematics is inherently racist, and that the first stride is to dismantle the racism in mathematics. Anyway, you can look up the article for yourself. I'll remind you of what is the search term so that you can find it very easily. Let's bring it up here on the, how do we bring it up? There we go. Math suffers from white supremacy according to a Bill Gates funded course. Unbelievable. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. It's been very long, but I think that we've addressed a number of topics that are outstanding. I know that people have asked me to address this thing of the maths. They've asked me to address this thing of what's his name, Matole Motshega's statement in that interview saying that black people absolutely must reject the idea and its implicit ideas of the cradle of humankind, evolution, blah, 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 blah. And maybe perhaps you enjoyed this nice long video on this wide variety of subjects. If you did, excellent. Thank you very much. Please press the thumbs up button and we'll speak to you again soon. All right, goodbye and God bless all of you in these apparently beginning stages of difficult times. Bye-bye.